Surrounded by darkness, loneliness, and broken pieces of myself, I began to think, how did I end up like this? Growing up in my family was no hardship, as my brother and myself never went without. There were restrictions which I needed to live with, like a curfew. Mine, being earlier than my friends, and what I always felt to be totally unfair. Other than that, life was good. I had no worries about anything. Since Mum and Dad had split up, it felt as though I was spiralling down into a black abyss with no direction. At 15 years old, the choice of living with my father was made for me, along with my younger brother. I think, as with most children, I wanted to live with my mum, however that wasn't possible. My mum needed to sort herself out first, therefore the best option, at the time, was for us to stay with Dad. To say that I wasn't best pleased by their decision was an understatement. I was at an age where I felt it was crucial that I be around her. My hormones were playing up, and my GCSEs were around the corner. That's just to name a few. I'd gotten more freedom though, my curfew extended, but first I had to take care of my brother until Dad got home. There would be nights when he wouldn't get in until 8 p.m. So that caused friction between myself and my dad. We had a turbulent relationship. Some would say it was because we were too much alike. I would say that there were other reasons for this, such as the way he drank every night when he came home from work. There was this one time when I came home from school and found copies of the telephone bill sellotaped to all the doors. Granted, the bill had been over £300, but it had included calls to my mum's mobile. Dad wasn't best pleased with it, and went on to smash up the telephone, shouting that I was never to call my mum again. The thing he didn't realise, or that he didn't check, were calls to Canada, which my aunt had made. She was also living with us at the time. I was upset by this, as the only way to contact my mum was on her mobile. She didn't have a landline, and I missed her so much. After Mum was told what Dad had done, he was forced to buy another telephone. Dad had to understand that due to my age and the changes I was going through, never mind not living with her, it was essential for my brother and myself to be able to call her. This wasn't the only instance that Dad had gone off the deep end. His favourite tipple was whiskey, and it just sent him into rages, which were always aimed at me, never my brother. I began thinking that he didn't like nor love me. Well, not as much as he did my brother. My brother was 6.5 years younger than me, and he always knew just how to get me into trouble. Many times he would tell tales to achieve that goal. We would argue and fight, as siblings do, but I also knew that we loved each other fiercely. About a year later, Dad decided to move to Manchester with his new girlfriend, taking my brother with him. His relationship with her was questionable as to when it started, as was the fact that she left her husband to live with him. She was also a lot younger than my dad, maybe in her late 20s, but I never did ask her age. She was beautiful, though, with long, black, silky hair that reached her bottom. She wore a perfume that was a sensual jasmine scent. Her name was Lena, and she came from a very strict family who abided by their customs. Adultery and divorce were a sin, and exile from the family was used as a punishment. If a woman did those things, then they brought shame on the family. I, on the other hand, was left to make my own decision as to whether I went with them. I used it as a chance to finally move in with Mum. Looking at her options on where to live, Mum bought a newly built house, which was about 30 miles from where we had previously lived. The houses were cheaper, as they were close to the motorways, but we had the choice in what carpets and kitchen units we wanted installed. Also, the fact that no one had lived there before was a definite selling point. So, at 17, myself and Mum moved into a modest 2-bedroom house in Stevenage, Hertfordshire. Life was good with just her and myself.